Run your hand along this wall and it feels like nothing special. Dry sandstone, warm, ordinary. But step back and the rock is moving, caught mid-motion, like a wave that stopped a half second before it broke. It didn't stop. Water carved it, water that stopped flowing here a very long time ago. No render, no painting. A real place on this planet, one of the impossible places you could stand inside this week. And it's one of the ones we can actually explain. Because some landforms out here still don't have a settled answer. The most mysterious landforms on Earth, the kind nobody can explain. Ground that lines up too cleanly to be an accident hills, in neat rows that people swore had to be built. Lakes that change color on their own with no one touching them. A 40-kilometer eye in the Sahara staring straight up at space. Some of these science has worked out. Some of them, after decades of trying it, still hasn't. 27 landforms, one planet, 27 impossible places. And by the end, the real question isn't how strange this world can get. It's how much of it we still can't explain. We start high, over 17,000 feet in the Peruvian Andes, on a ridge where the air is thin enough to make your head ache after a few steps. And the mountain is striped, red, gold, turquoise, a kind of bruised violet, running across the slope in clean horizontal bands, like someone painted them. Nobody painted them. Each stripe is a separate layer of ancient sediment, laid down over millions of years, then tilted upright by the same forces that built the Andes. The red is rust, iron in the rock, oxidizing in the open air. Copper leaves green tones, sulfur brings yellow. What makes this remote corner of the Andes stranger is how recently people actually started seeing it. For most of recorded history, the colors stayed hidden beneath snow and weathered rock. Only after the surface changed did the mountain begin showing what had been there all along. And even now, it doesn't look the same twice. Under hard sunlight, the colors glow. The moment cloud moves across the ridge, they flatten and almost disappear, like someone lowered the saturation of the world. The local Quechua people call places like this an Apu, a mountain spirit. From a distance, it looks like one of the most impossible places on Earth. Up close, it somehow looks even less real. From the thinnest air on a mountaintop, go the other direction entirely, down, inside. In central Vietnam, under dense jungle, sits the largest cave on Earth, one of the most extraordinary natural wonders on the planet. So large that a Boeing 747 could fly down the main passage without its wings touching the walls. The ceiling climbs to around 650 feet. End to end it runs roughly 5.5 miles. A river carved it out of limestone over millions of years, and that river still runs through the dark. Inside stand some of the tallest stalagmites on Earth, and cave pearls the size of baseballs. But the part that stops people isn't the size, it's the light. In two places, the roof collapsed long ago, opening enormous skylights, and sunlight pours straight down onto the cave floor. Under that light, a full jungle grows. Trees over 100 feet tall, birds, monkeys, clouds that form near the openings and drift through the cavern. Weather happening underground. It was only properly explored in 2009. Even now, fewer people have stood inside it than have reached the summit of Everest. Only 1,000 a year are allowed in, and the trips sell out years ahead to travelers from more than 70 countries. The man who found the entrance did it by accident. Sheltering from a storm, he felt cold wind roaring out of the ground, then lost it again in the jungle for almost 20 years before he could lead anyone back. Not every mystery here is enormous. Some are small enough to fit in your hands. In Death Valley, one of the hottest places on Earth, there's a dry lake bed cracked into pale plates that stretch flat to the horizon. And across that empty surface, rocks leave tracks. Some weigh as much as a person. Behind them, long grooves carved into the clay. Some run perfectly straight, others curve. A few change direction halfway across the lake bed. The strange part is that nobody saw them move for decades. People arrived in the morning and found new tracks where there had been none before. The answer turned out to be quieter than the mystery. A few times each year, the playa floods. Overnight, the water freezes into thin sheets around the stones. When the morning sun breaks the ice apart, even a light breeze can push those floating panels across the surface, and the rocks move with them, slowly carving lines into the soft mud below. So the stones really do move, just almost never when anyone is there to see it. You only find the trail and realize something heavy crossed the lake while nobody was watching. One of the most famous mysterious landforms in the American desert. Stay in the desert heat, but trade the open horizon for something almost invisible. In Arizona, you could walk past this place and never realize it's there. No mountain, no dramatic cliff, just a narrow split in the ground. Then you step inside. The walls close around you, and suddenly, The desert disappears. Smooth sandstone twists upward in flowing curves. Orange turning to red, red fading into shadow, until the sky above becomes a thin ribbon of light. None of it was carved slowly. Flash floods did this, sudden walls of water, forcing through soft rock again and again over thousands of years, shaping the canyon one violent surge at a time. Which means the process never really stopped. Even today, the canyon can fill in minutes. The sky above you can stay blue, while a storm falling miles away sends water racing through the slot. And then there's the moment people come for. A few times each day, sunlight drops through the narrow opening and cuts across the canyon as a solid beam, visible in the dust, hanging in the air. It lasts only a few minutes. This is Navajo land, and people enter with local guides, not just to find the light, but because in one of the most famous hidden places in the American Southwest, knowing the weather matters as much as knowing the way out. That canyon only becomes dangerous when the water arrives. This place looks dangerous all the time. Lake Natron in northern Tanzania. In the dry season, the shoreline turns deep red, not from pollution, not from minerals alone, but from microbes that thrive in water so hot and alkaline that most animals avoid it completely. Parts of the shallows can reach around 140 degrees Fahrenheit. The water can hit a pH near 10.5, close to ammonia, caustic enough to burn skin. And anything that dies in it doesn't rot. It calcifies. The soda in the water, the same mineral the Egyptians once used to mummify their dead, preserves the body where it falls stiff and chalk white. And then something unexpected happens. Every year, around 2.5 million lesser flamingos arrive here to breed roughly 3/4 of the entire species. Instead of avoiding the lake, they depend on it. The water is harsh enough to keep predators out, and the flamingos are built for it. Tough scaled legs that let them stand where most animals won't. So the place that looks least suitable for life becomes one of the most important nurseries on Earth. And just beside the lake sits the source of it all, a volcano that erupts unusually cool, dark lava, feeding sodium salts straight back into the water. From above, this remote landscape looks wrong. Red water, white salt, thousands of pink birds. Nothing about this natural wonder looks welcoming, which is exactly why it works. Natron keeps things out with chemistry. This place does it with geometry. In western Madagascar, there's a remote landscape people describe as a stone forest, except forests aren't supposed to cut you. The rock here began as an ancient seabed. Over millions of years, slightly acidic rain didn't smooth the limestone, it sharpened it. What's left is a maze of grey stone spires, rising more than 300 feet high, packed tightly together with deep cracks between them and edges sharp enough to earn the local name roughly where you cannot walk barefoot. From above, it doesn't look impossible. From ground level, it changes completely. Paths disappear. Open space turns into walls. Places that look close can take hours to reach. So people cross it another way, using iron ladders, suspended bridges, and cables stretched above the rock moving over the maze, because moving through it is often harder than it looks. And yet something crosses it barefoot. The Deccan sifaka, a bright white lemur with a black face, leaps spire to spire across the blades, landing on edges sharp enough to open skin, and never cuts itself. The name tells people not to walk here barefoot. This is the one animal that does. And beneath all those blades, the same limestone hides caves and underground passages. Which means this isn't really a stone forest. It's a hidden landscape with a second landscape underneath it. The eye stares up at the sky. This next place hides everything that matters underneath it. In central Turkey, tens of thousands of tall, pale cones rise out of the valleys, each one capped with a single dark boulder, balanced on top like stone mushrooms in a field that runs to the horizon. They formed the slow-way, ancient volcanic ash, hardened into soft rock. Then wind and water wore it down, except where a harder cap of basalt sat on top, shielding the column beneath. Erosion did the rest, leaving these thin towers holding up their stone hats. But the real surprise is underneath. Below this ancient landscape sit entire cities carved straight down into the rock. Tunnels, rooms, ventilation shafts, wells, reaching depths of over 260 feet. Tens of thousands of people once disappeared into them to hide from invading armies, sealing the entrances behind them and waiting in the dark. You can walk the surface and see fairy tale scenery with no idea a hidden world is sitting directly under your feet. The Tsingy traps you in inches. This next place is so large, you can stand inside it and miss the whole thing. In Mauritania, deep in the Sahara, there's a set of enormous rings, circle inside circle inside circle, stretching roughly 25 miles across. From the ground, it doesn't look unusual. You see ridges, valleys, desert. Only from the air does the pattern appear. That's why astronauts have used it as a landmark. For years, people assumed something dramatic created it. A meteor impact maybe, but nothing hit this place. The Riche structure is one of the world's most mysterious landforms, a giant dome of rock pushed upward from deep underground and slowly carved back down over more than 100 million years. Harder layers stayed, softer layers disappeared. And eventually the desert revealed the pattern. Naturally, people started inventing explanations. The most famous says, "This is Atlantis." There's no evidence for that. But standing in the middle of something this precise and never realizing it's there does make one thing easier to understand: why people sometimes look at geology and assume someone designed it. One of the most extraordinary places on Earth, hiding in one of the most remote corners of the Sahara. Climb back out and climb much higher into the cold. High in the Andes, above 10,000 feet, the snow doesn't lie flat. It stands up. Thousands of thin blades of ice, some as tall as a person, all leaning the same direction toward the sun. Walking through a field of them is less like crossing snow and more like wading through a crowd of frozen spears. They form because of how dry and bright it is up here in this remote mountain landscape. The sun doesn't melt the snow into water. It turns it straight into vapor. The dips melt back faster than the peaks. The peaks sharpen and they tilt toward the light that's carving them. Charles Darwin pushed through a field of these in 1835 and wrote about how miserable it was. And much later, NASA spotted similar blade-like structures on Pluto, the same basic physics running on a world billions of miles away. The same trick of light and ice, two completely different planets. same planet, completely different rules. There's an island in the Arabian Sea that split away from the ancient supercontinent so long ago that life there evolved on its own, in isolation, for millions of years. The result, somewhere around a third of its plants and the overwhelming majority of its reptiles exist nowhere else on Earth. The signature is the dragon's blood tree. Picture an umbrella turned inside out and made of branches, a dense, flat-topped crown on a thick trunk, holding its shape against constant wind. And the name isn't decoration. Cut the bark, and the tree bleeds a thick, dark red resin. For centuries, it's been collected for dye and medicine. Local legend says the red comes from the blood of a dragon. The tree's been quietly doing it the whole time on one of the most isolated islands on Earth, one of the most unique places on the planet, and an island most people will never reach. From an island open to the sky, back underground, into a room that was never meant to hold anyone. Nearly 1,000 feet under the Mexican desert, miners cut into a chamber full of crystals, beams of clear gypsum as long as telephone poles, crossing the cave at every angle, some weighing dozens of tons. They grew over tens of thousands of years in mineral-rich water heated by magma below. But the air inside sits near 136 degrees Fahrenheit at almost total humidity. Sweat can't evaporate, so the body can't cool itself. Without a refrigerated suit, a person lasts only minutes, surrounded by some of the most beautiful structures on the planet. Then the mine pumps switched off, the chamber flooded again, and this hidden underground world vanished back underwater. It may already be sealed for good. Back to the surface and to water that can't decide what color to be. On a volcano on the island of Flores sit 3 lakes side by side. One might be deep red, the next turquoise, the third near black. Then, over weeks or months with no warning, one of them changes to green, to brown, to white, while a lake a few hundred feet away stays exactly as it was. The cause is chemistry. Volcanic gases bubble up from below and react with minerals dissolved in each lake: iron, sulfur, and because each crater holds a slightly different mix, each one shifts on its own schedule. There's no fixed cycle anyone can predict. The local Leo people have lived with this far longer than the science existed to describe it. To them, this sacred landscape is where the souls of the dead go sorted into 3 lakes: the elders, the young, and those who did wrong in life. Between 2 of the craters, a single thin rock ridge separates one resting place from the next. now somewhere where nothing changes at all. Deadvley in the Namib Desert. A flat white clay pan cracked into a tile floor, ringed by some of the tallest sand dunes on the planet, deep rust orange rising against a hard blue sky. The color contrast alone stops you. Standing on the white pan are dead trees, black, bare, skeletal. They've been dead for around 900 years, but it's far too dry here for them to rot, so they just stand exactly where they died, slowly scorched dark by the sun. There's no sound, no wind in the branches because the branches are stone hard. No animals moving, just black trees on white ground under orange dunes, holding completely still. Some places overwhelm you with motion and scale. This isolated landscape does the opposite. It empties out and lets the silence do the work. Dead trees again, but standing in water this time, not sand. In 1911, a powerful earthquake shook the mountains of what's now Kazakhstan. A slope let go, slid down, and dammed a narrow valley, and the water backed up behind it, slowly rising over a living forest. The trees drowned, but they didn't fall and they didn't rot. The water is cold, rarely above a few degrees, even in summer, and so clear you can see nearly 100 feet down. The submerged trunks are preserved almost intact, while the parts still standing above the surface have weathered to bare, grey poles. So from the shore, it looks like a dead forest standing in turquoise glass. Below the waterline, those same trunks are furred green, with moss and algae frozen in cold water for over a century. You have to climb through rough mountains to reach this hidden lake. Most people never do. In Wyoming, a single flat-topped tower of rock rises straight out of the forest, its sides scored with thousands of tall, near-vertical columns like the world's largest bundle of stone pencils. It's called Devil's Tower, and it was the first national monument in the United States. Geologists still haven't fully settled how it formed hardened magma that never reached the surface or the worn-down core of an old volcano. Both camps have a case. The top is flat, about the size of a football field, more than 800 feet up, with its own little world of grass, snakes, and rodents that no one on the ground ever sees. Those columns are split by deep parallel cracks running straight up the rock and to a climber that's close to perfect. The tower is one of the most famous crack-climbing walls on Earth, with hundreds of roots pushing right up its sides. But that name is a fairly recent mistake. Devil's Tower came from a US expedition in 1875, most likely a mistranslation of what the people here had always called it. To the Plains tribes who hold this sacred landmark sacred, it's Bear Lodge, from a story in which a giant bear, reaching for children who'd climbed the rising rock, raked its claws down the sides and left those long, vertical grooves. Out of respect, most climbers stay off the tower through June when ceremonies are held. Now, an illusion. From the air off the coast of Mauritius, the ocean looks like it's draining. A vast pale plume seems to pour off the edge of a shelf and plunge into a dark blue abyss, as if the sea itself is collapsing through a hole in its own floor. It looks like something a ship could fall into. Nothing is falling. The water stays exactly where it is. What you're seeing is sand and silt. The island sits on a shallow underwater shelf that drops away sharply into deep ocean, and currents drag sediment over that edge down the slope in a steady cascade. From above, the moving sand reads as falling water, a waterfall with no water in it. Generations of local fishermen looked at that dark drop-off and decided it was a doorway you don't go near. Hard to blame them. One of the most unusual natural wonders in the Indian Ocean. Still on the water, but out in the open Atlantic now, a near-perfect ring of land sitting just above the waves. Off the coast of the Azores, it looks like a green circle wrapped around a calm pool of seawater. It's the top of an old volcano, a few thousand years dead, most of it still hidden underwater. What you can see is just the rim breaking the surface. The bulk of it drops away below. The lagoon in the middle fills the old crater, its floor paved with dark lava rock instead of sand. A narrow channel lets the ocean in and out natural-looking, though people are thought to have widened it long ago to shelter their boats. By day, seabirds tuck themselves into dark holes in the rock. After dark, they come out and call across the water all at once. These days, the calm crater is a swimming spot, and the cliff beside it is a stage for divers who throw themselves off a rock tower into the sea. a volcano turned into a pool. Now, we are going to a place where you can float between two continents at once. Silfra is a flooded crack in the Earth, sitting right on the boundary where the North American and Eurasian plates pull apart roughly 1 inch a year every year. The fissure opened after earthquakes tied to that slow tearing of the crust. Divers go down into it, and the water is almost unreal. It's been filtered through volcanic rock for decades, leaving it so pure you can see well over 300 feet ahead. The whole gap glows pale blue-green, with almost nothing living in it, just thin films of algae on the rock and that endless clarity. At the narrowest section, you can reach out and touch rock on both sides, a hand on each continent at the same time, hovering in the crack where the planet is slowly coming apart in one of the most unique places on Earth. Out on the Mangistau Plateau, thousands of stone spheres lie scattered across the ground. Some are the size of a football. Some are bigger than a car. They look arranged, placed, like something cleared this ground and set them down on purpose. Nothing did. They're concretions minerals that slowly gathered around a small core under ancient sediment building. Outward, in layers like a pearl, grows around a grain of sand. The sea that covered all this evaporated something like 120 million years ago, and erosion eventually exposed the spheres it left behind. Several have cracked open over time, and the insides don't match the outside's different color, different texture, like a shell split to show something hidden in the middle. Of course, people came up with other explanations: crashed craft, cosmic eggs, stand on that plain at sunset with long shadows stretching off 1,000 stone balls, and the wild theories at least make emotional sense around one of the world's most mysterious landforms. From solid stone to something almost liquid, a lake you can walk across made of tar. In Trinidad, there's around 100 acres of natural asphalt, the largest deposit of its kind known anywhere. The surface is firm enough to stand on, wrinkled and cracked like gray elephant skin, slowly shifting as the faults beneath it push and pull. Under that crust sits a pit of thick, heavy black hydrocarbon, dozens of feet deep. After rain, the water can't soak into the tar, so it pools on top in shallow ponds. Across the surface, black asphalt, pale water sitting on it. For more than a century, people have dug it out by the millions of tons to surface roads around the world, and it doesn't run out. The lake keeps welling up from below, refilling itself, swallowing anything left on it overnight. People have tried to drain it. It just rises again, one of the most unusual natural wonders in the Caribbean. From black tar to white ice and a volcano that erupts the wrong thing. Out on the cold Kazakh steppe every winter, a small volcano appears, except it doesn't erupt fire, it erupts water. Warm spring water rises from underground, hits air near -4 degrees Fahrenheit, and freezes the instant it reaches the surface. Layer by layer all winter, it builds a hollow cone of ice, a tower that can reach 40 feet or more, with a plume of vapor curling off the top like smoke from a real vent. Inside, the water keeps moving, so the core never fully freezes. It's a strange living cone of ice fed from below. Scientists compare it to a cryovolcano, a kind of ice volcano recorded out on Pluto and on distant moons. Then spring comes, the tower melts, the steppe turns green, and there's no sign anything was ever there until the cold returns and it builds itself again in one of the most unusual natural landscapes in Central Asia. Some of these science has closed the file on. This next one, it hasn't. Across a stretch of Namibian grassland, the ground is dotted with bare, circular patches, millions of them, each ringed by a neat band of taller grass. From the air, they spread out in an even repeating pattern across thousands of square miles. The strange part is the discipline of it. The circles don't touch, they don't overlap. Each one holds its space, grows to a few feet across, stays empty for decades, then quietly fades while new ones appear nearby. And they only form in a narrow band of rainfall too wet or too dry, and the pattern simply doesn't happen. Researchers have argued for over 50 years, competing grasses fighting for water, insects clearing the centers, probably some combination. there are good theories. There just isn't one everyone agrees on. So the circles keep their spacing and keep their secret as one of the world's most mysterious landforms. From a silence no one can explain to a valley that won't stop making noise. In a steaming valley in Iceland sits the hot spring that named all the others. The English word geyser comes from this exact place, from geyser. Once it threw columns of boiling water well over 300 feet into the air. These days, it mostly rests quiet and dormant. The whole valley is wired to the Earth's temper. A single earthquake can seal a vent that's erupted for centuries, or wake one that's been silent. The ones still active put on a show. In the seconds before an eruption, the water gets sucked downward and swells into a smooth, glassy blue dome, and then it bursts straight up, scalding. And people here use the heat for ordinary things. They bury pots of rye dough in the hot ground and let the earth itself bake the bread slowly over the better part of a day. Same ground that can throw boiling water at the sky. They just put dinner in it, one of Iceland's most remarkable natural wonders. From a valley that feels alive to one that looks like the planet gave up on it. The Bisti Badlands in New Mexico, a wide expanse of thin rock towers, crumbling stone mushrooms, and bands of gray, black, and brown earth, with no clear trail and no signs. It reads as dead, lifeless. Which is the twist. Around 70 million years ago, this exact ground was a warm, wet coastal swamp, thick with life. Then the sea pulled back, and time went to work wind and rain, stripping away the soft layers, leaving these strange shapes behind. The cracked ground still gives up petrified wood and the fossil traces of dinosaurs that once moved through here when it was green. No marked path, no fixed route. You navigate by landmarks and instinct across this remote ancient landscape on the bones of a world that died long before anything human could remember it. Out of the dead badlands and onto a quiet beach where the strange shapes are round and look almost deliberate. On New Zealand's South Island, huge round boulders sit half buried in the sand like something rolled them up out of the sea and left them in a row. Each one can reach about 6 feet across, almost perfectly spherical, smooth, dark, and heavy. They're concretions again, but older and slower than most. These formed around 60 million years ago on the ancient seafloor minerals, hardening outward around a center over enormous spans of time long before this coastline existed. The part that still gets argued over, many of them crack from the inside out, splitting along patterns no one fully agrees on. Break one open, and you find a network of crystallized minerals webbed across the interior like a honeycomb cast in stone. The Maori have their own account that these are food baskets washed ashore and turned to stone after an ancient canoe was wrecked on this coast. Stand among them at low tide, and that story holds up about as well as any around one of the world's most unusual coastal landforms. Stay by the cold water and watch the coast turn into geometry. On the edge of Northern Ireland, around 40,000 columns of dark basalt, most of them six-sided, pack together so tightly and so evenly that they look machined, forming steps and platforms that march out from the cliffs and descend straight into the Atlantic. When the tide pulls back, more of them emerge like a floor that keeps going under the sea. The truth is volcanic. Around 50 to 60 million years ago, thick lava cooled slowly, and as it shrank, it cracked into these regular geometric blocks. Cooling lava does this on its own. It still doesn't look like it should. So of course, there's a legend, and it's a good one, a giant named Finn McCool who supposedly built this causeway across the sea to go and face a rival in Scotland. And the water keeps its own history. A ship from the Spanish Armada went down off this coast in 1588 and held its treasure on the seabed for nearly 400 years beside one of the world's most famous natural wonders and a UNESCO World Heritage Site. We end at the edge of the world, or what feels like it. Where Venezuela, Brazil, and Guyana meet, a single mountain stands above the clouds with a completely flat top, sheer cliffs on every side, rising over 8,000 feet, with a summit cut so level it looks sliced. Most of the year, the clouds swallow it whole, and it just floats there grey and impossible to reach. It's one of the oldest pieces of land on the planet, part of a foundation more than 2 billion years old. And because the top has been sealed off by those cliffs for so long, life up there went its own way. Plants that eat insects, frogs found nowhere else, a small, isolated world stranded in the sky. Waterfalls pour off the rim and dissolve into mist before they ever reach the bottom. "27 places, 1 planet." We've drained oceans into deserts, frozen water into towers, grown jungles inside caves, and watched stone walk across a dry lake. And the honest part, the part worth sitting with, is how much of this we still can't explain. We've mapped almost all of it. We haven't understood all of it. The strangest thing about this planet isn't any one of these places. It's that they're all the same world, the one outside your window right now. So, which of these would you actually stand in front of? And how sure are you that we've found the last of these impossible places? Something moved beneath the house. You hear branches cracking somewhere in the dark. Heavy footsteps, leaves shifting in the jungle below. But nobody goes to check. Because the house is 60 feet above the ground, built on top of a tree, and the people sleeping inside learned a long time ago that whatever is wandering through the forest at night is better left down there. That's where we begin tonight. And somehow this is just a gentle introduction to what are truly impossible places. And somehow this is one of the least unbelievable places we're about to see. Far north in the Arctic, entire families still cross frozen tundra, with reindeer caravans moving through blizzards in sub-zero temperatures, cold enough to freeze skin in minutes. In the mountains of Pakistan, there's a bridge made from ropes, rusted cables, and missing wooden planks hanging over a river, violent enough to erase anyone who slips. A crossing that is definitely not for the faint of heart. Deep in Siberia, children still walk to school at minus 50 degrees in a village where the extreme climate can kill a car engine before morning. And in the middle of China, there's a desert where dunes taller than skyscrapers make deep thunder-like sounds when the wind moves across them. None of these hostile environments was meant to feel livable. Too cold, too high, too unstable, too isolated. Too cold, too high, too unstable, too isolated. And yet people stayed. Not for a few weeks, not for an expedition, for generations. Join us in this travel documentary as we venture into the most extreme corners of Earth and meet the people who decided the edge was home. The Korowai didn't build high because they wanted to. They built high because the alternatives were worse. Deep within the remote rainforests of Indonesian Papua, the jungle floor is a lethal environment. This is one of the world's most hostile terrains, dense with hazards, large predators, torrential seasonal flooding, and insects carrying diseases that don't have names in most pharmacopoeias. To survive this extreme ecosystem, the Korowai solution, refined over centuries, was vertical distance. Go up far enough, and most threats stop following. These are engineering achievements built from forest knowledge alone. A single large tree is selected, typically ironwood or banyan strong enough to bear the load. The main platform lashes to the trunk using strips of bark and rattan's smaller branches woven into a floor that holds a family, their tools, their fire. Walls of sago palm bark, roof of layered leaves that shed rain the way feathers do. The structure doesn't just sit on the tree. Over years, bark grows over the contact points. The tree slowly incorporates the house into itself. Some tree houses are built in response to a specific threat, the laleo malevolent spirits or dangerous outsiders, depending on what kind of threat has arrived. In this isolated corner of the world, when something threatens the community, you go higher. The height is both practical and spiritual. Elevation as protection. Elevation as declaration. At 45 meters in wind, the tree moves. The house moves with it. The floor shifts. The walls creak. The Korowai sleep through that. They've always slept through that. And when a threat appears below, they don't climb down to investigate. They go higher. At night from inside the chum. Sorry, from inside the treehouse, the jungle below is invisible, pure dark. You hear it, insects, movement, things you can't identify. The platform creaks in the wind. The tree sways millimeters. 60 feet of air between you and everything that could hurt you. The Korowai call this enough? They have called this inhospitable landscape home for generations. The sound arrives before the water does. A low ground-level thunder building over several minutes into something you feel in your chest and your feet before your ears fully register it. By the time you hear it clearly, you're already deciding whether to run. This is the Chantang River tidal bore called the Yinlang, the Silver Dragon. Every year, the right combination of tide and moon sends the sea surging back upriver from Hangzhou Bay. The bay narrows like a funnel, forcing an enormous mass of water into a tighter and tighter channel. The wave reaches 8 to 9 meters. It moves at up to 40 kilometers per hour. People stand at the viewing banks every year knowing this, and every year some of them misjudge the distance. The bore has been recorded in Chinese literature for over 2,000 years. Han scholars documented it. Tang dynasty commanders used it as a weapon timing troop movements to strand enemies on the banks as the wave came in. In the 11th century, Su Dongpo watched it from the riverbank and wrote the most famous description in Chinese literature. He called it 10,000 cavalry advancing on a drumbeat. He was not exaggerating. The surge flips, fishing boats tears trees from riverbanks, pushes debris kilometers inland. When the bore is large, it creates secondary waves that bounce off the riverbanks and collide mid-river. The chaos of water in those minutes is extraordinary. Not just one wave, but a churn of intersecting forces, each one capable of ending you. After it passes the roar, the white chaos, the foam, the river goes quiet. The silver dragon retreats. It will come back next year, same month, same week, nearly the same hour. And the people on the bank will stand too close again. They always do. Mawson Ram, in the Meghalaya state of northeastern India, receives approximately 11,871 millimeters of rainfall per year. London gets around 600. The wettest cities in the United States get maybe 1,600. Mawson Ram gets nearly 12,000. During peak monsoon, the rain doesn't fall so much as occupy space. It fills the air, runs in sheets down hillsides with nowhere left to drain. The sound on a tin roof during peak monsoon is described by residents as physically painful. Wood rots within days. Metal corrodes overnight. The Khasi people of Meghalaya built something remarkable out of all that water. They trained trees. Over decades, sometimes generations, they guided the aerial roots of Indian rubber fig trees across river gorges, weaving them together until the roots themselves became bridges. Not bridges built from wood that rots. Living bridges growing stronger every year. The technique guide young roots through hollowed bamboo tubes to direct their growth across the gap, then interweave as they thicken. The bamboo scaffold eventually rots away entirely. What remains is the root structure itself, self-supporting, improving with every monsoon. The oldest root bridges are estimated at over 500 years old. Some hold 50 people at once. Some are double-decked the upper level, built by a generation that never saw the lower one built. In Mawson Ram, the rain is the architecture. Elsewhere, people build walls to keep water out. Here, the water is what holds the building together and strengthens it every year it falls, which is every year it has ever been. But if you think this chapter has shown you the most dangerous place in Asia, we haven't even started on the mountains yet. The name was given by German climbers in the 1930s. Fairy meadows. You don't arrive suddenly. First comes the road, one of the most dangerous mountain roads in Pakistan, carved into the cliffs above the Indus River. Then the road ends entirely, and the rest happens on foot. The trail climbs through pine forest, cold air, wet soil, tree roots crossing the path like cables. For long stretches, the mountain stays hidden behind the trees. You hear rivers somewhere below, but can't see them. Then the forest opens. The first thing you see is grass, green, soft-looking grass, the kind you want to sit down in. Then you look up. It fits, sort of. The meadow is genuinely beautiful green, open, surrounded by pine forest at the base of the western Himalayas. Alpine flowers, air cold enough to be refreshing. The kind of place photographers camp for weeks to get the right light on the mountain. The mountain directly behind it is Nanga Parbat. Killer mountain. More than 30 climbers died here before the first successful summit in 1953. The casualty rate in those early decades was higher here than on Everest. Not just from difficulty, but from a specific quality. The mountain has a talent for sudden, massive, unpredictable violence. The 1937 expedition lost 16 climbers in a single night when an avalanche destroyed their high camp while they slept. 16. One night. Largest single loss of life in Himalayan climbing history at the time. The Rupal face visible directly from the meadow is the tallest mountain face on Earth. 4,600 meters of near vertical rise. Hanging glaciers release without warning. The avalanches reach the valley floor in under 3 minutes. From the meadow, they look like white brushstrokes on a painting. They carry several thousand tons of material at speeds exceeding 200 kilometers per hour. The meadow is real, the flowers are real, and the mountain has killed people standing exactly where you're standing now on days that started exactly like this one. The Karakoram Highway connects Pakistan and China through some of the most geologically violent terrain on Earth. It crosses the Khunjerab Pass at 4,693 meters. It runs alongside rivers that flood seasonally beside slopes with no structural stability through passes buried under snow for months. Building it took around 20 years. By most estimates, 1 worker died per kilometer of road constructed. The full highway runs 1,300 kilometers. Do the math. In 2010, a landslide dammed the Hunza River, creating a lake that rose over several months and swallowed villages and a stretch of the highway. For years, the only crossing was by boat, over what had been someone's home rooftops, visible in calm water. And then there's Husseini Bridge. Rope and wooden planks across the Hunza River. Planks missing, not broken, just gone replaced periodically when someone gets around to it. The bridge is not a tragedy waiting to happen. It is a piece of infrastructure in active daily use, which is a different and more unsettling thing. The bridge sways in wind. The drop to the river takes several seconds. Local people cross it carrying heavy loads at a normal walking pace because it is the road, and the road needs crossing. Nearby, the Yellow River carries a different kind of impossible. The Lus Plateau dumps so much silt into the river that the riverbed has risen above the surrounding floodplain, a hanging river flowing above the rooftops of the villages beside it, held up by its own levees. When those levees fail, the river doesn't flood into the valley. It falls into it. This part of the world has decided that roads, rivers, and bridges should all exist somewhere they have no logical right to be. Somehow they do. And this still isn't the most punishing terrain in this chapter. The next place doesn't have a road at all. Spiti Valley in the Indian Himalayas sits at an average elevation of around 3,800 meters. Visitors spend their first 2 days with headaches and impaired judgment. The valley seals under snow for roughly 6 months. In winter, the only road in becomes unusable, no other way in or out. Key Monastery has been on its ridge since at least the 11th century. It looks like it grew from the rock, same color, same texture, stacked white and brown layers following the shape of the hill. Monks have lived there continuously through winters that most people would not survive without modern equipment. In deep winter, it's accessible only on foot through snow at altitude. The practice continues. But the detail that stays with you isn't Key Monastery. It's the post office at Hikim. Hikim sits at around 4,400 meters. It has a functioning post office, reportedly the highest in the world. Walk in, buy a stamp mail, a postcard, anywhere on Earth. It will actually arrive. The postmaster Rinchen Chawang has reportedly been running this post office for years. Tourists come specifically to mail postcards from here. The world's highest post office stamp has become a collector's item. There is apparently a waiting list to get one during busy season. A working postal service at the edge of breathable air. The postmaster has worked this elevation for years. During operating season, the post office handles mail from researchers' trekkers' residents. In winter closure, mail accumulates and goes out in batches when the road reopens. Spiti doesn't ask for your ore. Monasteries, post offices, winter roads, all operating at elevations that make most other human infrastructure seem like it was built under suspiciously comfortable conditions. In the village of Oymyakon, Siberia, The recorded temperature on February 6, 1933 was -67.7 degrees Celsius, coldest temperature ever recorded at a permanently inhabited settlement on Earth. At -67, machinery stops functioning. Car engines run all night, not for warmth, but because if they stop, they won't start again until spring. Eyelashes freeze between blinks. Breath doesn't mist, it crackles moisture, crystallizing before it disperses. Locals call this sound the whisper of stars because it happens most intensely on clear, still nights. Ink in pens freezes. Smartphone screens stop responding. Glasses fuse to skin. The market in Oymyakon sells frozen fish and frozen meat, not refrigerated, just left outside in stalls that are colder than any freezer. You pick up the fish and it's solid as stone. You buy it like you'd buy a brick. At home, you thaw it slowly near the fire. The thaw takes the better part of a day. Preserving food in winter here isn't a technology, it's geography. The cold does the work. It has always done the work. About 500 people live here permanently. The dead are buried with blowtorches because ordinary shovels can't penetrate the permafrost. Infrastructure sits on stilts because the heat from buildings would thaw the ground beneath and sink the structure. In Oymyakon, warmth is the structural threat. Schools close when the temperature drops below -52. That's the threshold. -52 is where acceptable ends. The name Oymyakon translates from the Yakut language as something close to non-freezing water, a hot spring nearby. The only reason anyone stopped here in the first place centuries ago. They stopped. They stayed. And they built a village where -52 is a normal school day benchmark. Inside the chum, it's warm. Orange light, smell of hide and smoke, sound of wind pressing hard against the canvas walls. Outside, -40, open tundra, hundreds of kilometers in every direction. The Nenets people of the Yamal Peninsula have been migrating across this terrain for at least 1,000 years. Seasonal routes covering up to 1,200 kilometers, crossing frozen rivers and open tundra, herding reindeer through conditions that would hospitalize most people within days. Their portable homes, the chum assemble and dismantle in under an hour. The poles, the hides, the fire pit packed onto sleds, moved to the next campsite rebuilt. In a year, a family might do this 40 or 50 times. The chum is not a home in the permanent sense. It's a home in the useful sense, which turns out to be the only sense that matters. In the Nenets language, there are specific words for dozens of different types of snow, not poetic vocabulary, but survival vocabulary. A herder who can't distinguish between load-bearing ice and hollow-crusted snow will lose reindeer to the ground. And losing reindeer isn't a metaphor for hardship. It is the actual thing. Their diet in the field includes raw reindeer meat and blood. Not as tradition as biochemistry. Fresh blood provides vitamin C that prevents scurvy. It provides iron. It provides warmth in a way cooked food, requiring fire, and fuel can't always deliver on a moving migration. They drink blood because it works. The Yamal Peninsula is also cracking open. As permafrost thaws faster than in any prior measured period, craters have been appearing in the ground, dozens of meters wide, forming suddenly when underground pockets of frozen methane destabilize and explode outward. The Nenets have documented craters appearing in migration corridors they've used for generations. The ground they've relied on for 1,000 years is changing in ways 1,000 years didn't prepare them for. In winter, the population drops to around 40 people. Temperatures reach -80. No aircraft can land fuel freezers before it can be pumped. No resupply. No evacuation. If something goes wrong medically, the station doctor is the only option. In 1999, one winter-over physician diagnosed herself with early-stage breast cancer. She performed her own biopsy using guidance from doctors communicating by email. She managed her own treatment until the station reopened in the spring. She stayed. Every January 1st, a new South Pole marker is placed at the mathematically correct pole position. The old markers remain behind, slowly drifting away on moving ice. The station keeps sliding across Antarctica a few meters every year. The people inside keep working anyway. April 26, 1986, Reactor 4 of the Chernobyl nuclear power plant exploded. Pripyat population 49,000 was evacuated within 36 hours. Residents were told to bring documents and food for 3 days. Most never came back. The apartments are still furnished, clothes still in wardrobes, toys on floors. The 30-kilometer exclusion zone was cleared of all permanent human population and has stayed that way. And the wolves moved in. Without human activity, the exclusion zone has become one of the most ecologically rich areas in Eastern Europe. Wolves at densities roughly 7 times higher than in comparable uncontaminated reserves nearby packs that have grown large enough to take on European bison, a species the zone has also quietly accumulated. Lynx, brown bear, beavers, wild boar, Przewalski's horses, a species extinct in the wild elsewhere in Europe for decades. Camera traps have photographed animals using Pripyat streets as regular movement corridors. The Ferris wheel, scheduled to open the week after the explosion, is now surrounded by closed canopy forest. Eagles nest on the reactor building. The radiation is still there. Some areas remain dangerous. Researchers have documented genetic abnormalities in certain bird populations near the most contaminated zones. But the simpler picture, the most contaminated landscape in Europe, became, by ecological measurement, one of the most biodiverse. Not because radiation is beneficial, because we were gone. You can't feel good about Chernobyl. You can't extract a comfortable lesson from it. But you can observe this in Pripyat. There is an amusement park that was scheduled to open for May Day celebrations in 1986. The evacuation happened 9 days before the opening. The rides were never run. The bumper cars are still in position. The Ferris wheel has never moved under its own power. And the trees have grown up through the floor of the bumper car enclosure, through the metal, through the ride. When 49,000 people left the forest, decided it was fine with that, and started immediately. Norilsk, Russia, 170,000 people, above the Arctic Circle. Not connected to Russia's road network, no highway reaches it. Leave by plane or by river, and the river freezes for most of the year. The city processes nickel, copper, cobalt, palladium. The infrastructure cannot be shut down. If the heating fails for just a few hours in deep winter, the pipes freeze and the city collapses. Everything must keep running through winters that reach -50. The sulfur dioxide output, by some estimates more annual emissions than the entire country of France, has stripped vegetation for 30 kilometers in all directions. The soil is laden with heavy metals. Snow turns unusual colors here. Children in Norilsk have higher rates of respiratory illness than children almost anywhere else in Russia. Life expectancy in the city is measurably lower than the national average. On bad days, the toxic gas concentration is high enough that the city issues warnings about outdoor exposure time. Residents adapt over years, which means they stop noticing the smell the way they stop noticing the cold. Visitors notice it immediately: the back of the throat, the eyes watering the body correctly, identifying that something is wrong. The city was built on gulag labor in the 1930s. The first workers arrived in chains, excavating foundations in permafrost during temperatures that killed people who slowed down. The city they built has never been able to stop running. Because the economics of stopping the cleanup costs the 170,000 people, the infrastructure decommissioning are worse than the economics of continuing. So it continues. Some residents were born here and have never left. Some came for wages. Hazard pay is built into Norilsk's basic salary structure. Some simply stayed. The way people stay in places that become home before they fully notice what home is costing them. 1,000 miles to the east, cutting deep into that same frozen Siberian permafrost, the Mir Mine. Diamond mine, 525 meters deep, 1,200 meters wide. The air pressure differential creates downdrafts so powerful they can pull small aircraft in. Helicopters are forbidden from flying over it. Humanity dug that hole to make jewelry, built a city next to it that poisons the sky, and kept both running. Norilsk is a place where people are trapped with the poison. Etna is a place where people chose to stay next to it. Mount Etna, on the eastern coast of Sicily, is the most active volcano in Europe. It has been erupting in some form, at some level almost continuously, for at least 2,500 years of recorded history. Major eruptions have buried towns, cut roads, redirected rivers of lava through farmland. The 1669 eruption destroyed part of the city of Catania, 27 kilometers away, and reached the sea. A 1928 eruption buried the town of Mascali entirely in 11 days. At night, Etna looks less like a mountain than an industrial accident happening inside the earth. Lava moves downslope in glowing rivers, slow enough to watch, fast enough that anything in its path eventually loses the argument. And sometimes the lava stops meters from a vineyard. Roughly 900,000 people live on Etna's slopes. Not in spite of the volcano, in many cases because of it. Volcanic soil is among the most fertile on Earth. The minerals released by centuries of eruption, potassium, phosphorus, magnesium, produce agricultural land that farmers in other parts of the world cannot replicate artificially. The wines grown on Etna's slopes from vines rooted in dark volcanic ash have become some of the most sought after in Italy. The tomatoes, the pistachios, the citrus. Etna gives and Etna takes. The farmers know this. They have always known this. The calculation, and it is a deliberate calculation made by each generation, is that the soil is worth the risk. Some vineyards on Etna are protected by old lava walls, built generations ago, black volcanic stone stacked by hand. In aerial view, the mountain looks divided into geometric patterns of agriculture climbing toward an active crater. Farms, roads, villages, lava fields, all existing simultaneously on the side of a volcano that never fully stops erupting. Norilsk cannot stop. The economics of leaving are too bad. Etna's residents could leave. The land in the valley below is perfectly safe. They look at the volcano and they stay anyway. Because the volcano is also why the food is extraordinary. There are dunes in the Badenjaran Desert that reach over 500 meters high. The Eiffel Tower is 330 meters. Some of these formations are taller than that, extending for kilometers, moving slowly, measurably, year by year. And they sing. When wind crosses the dunes at certain angles, the sand produces a sustained, resonant bass note, deep enough to feel in your chest, that continues for minutes. Scientists have explanations involving grain size and aerodynamics. The Mongolian people, who've lived here for centuries, had a different explanation. They said spirits live in the dunes and the singing is how the desert speaks. There are also 144 lakes inside this desert. Not dried lake beds, active lakes, some fresh water, some salt, persisting through centuries of drought. The leading hypothesis involves ancient underground aquifers recharged by snowmelt from the Kilian Mountains hundreds of kilometers away, water that has been traveling underground for thousands of years before surfacing here in the middle of a singing desert as a lake. The hydrology is still genuinely debated. Scientists aren't sure. Nobody's sure. Nearby, the Karhan Salt Lake fills the Qaidam Basin, nearly 6,000 square kilometers of white crystalline salt, so flat and dense that a highway runs directly across its surface. Trucks drive on the lake itself. And far to the west, in Yemen, the ancient city of Shibam has been standing for 5 centuries in the middle of the Hadramaut Valley. Mud brick towers, 8 to 10 stories high, built from the same earth they stand on. The oldest high-rise city on Earth, built from dried mud. Still standing because the people who live there keep repairing it generation after generation. Because what else are you going to do when the desert is also your building material? About 400 kilometers east of the Singing Dunes, there is a place where a lake used to be. Lop Nur was once one of the largest lakes in Central Asia. The Chinese explorer Zhang Qian described it in the 2nd century BC. Marco Polo skirted its shores on his Silk Road route. The Swedish explorer Sven Hedin spent years searching for it in the early 1900s, when it seemed to have vanished, and eventually found it only to discover the lake had moved the entire body of water, migrating across the desert as its river inputs shifted. A wandering lake. By the 1970s, it was gone entirely. The rivers feeding it had been diverted for agriculture upstream. The lake dried. What remained a vast white salt crust, 3,000 square kilometers of it, and silence. The Chinese government began nuclear testing in the Lop Nur Basin in 1964. 45 tests over 30 years above ground and below ground. The salt flats absorbed it all. The yardangs, those wind-sculpted formations rising from the former lake bed, look from the air like the ruins of a city that never existed. Rows of them perfectly aligned by wind, casting long shadows across the white salt. Geologists study them. Photographers go there for the images. Nobody swims there anymore. Lop Nur is what happens when a desert takes a lake back. Badenjaran is what happens when a desert hides its water underground for thousands of years and surfaces it quietly in the middle of the singing dunes when nobody is watching. The Portuguese who first mapped this coastline called it as Arraias do Inferno, the gates of hell. The skeleton coast of Namibia runs roughly 500 kilometers along the South Atlantic. The cold Benguela current brings fog so dense and consistent that ships navigating by sight couldn't see the shore until they were already on it. No lighthouse, no warning, just the sound of surf then, if unlucky, the sound of hull meeting sand. More than 1,000 shipwrecks along this coast. Some ancient, some from the 20th century, some still have cargo, some still have personal effects, letters, tools, watches, preserved in the hyper-arid air that blows off the Namib Desert, which begins exactly where the beach ends. Sailors who made it ashore faced something worse than the water. The Namib is one of the oldest deserts on Earth, backed by 300-meter dunes, almost no surface water for potentially hundreds of kilometers. Men who reached shore faced a walk of that distance with nothing to drink. Most didn't make it. A handful of historical accounts describe what that walk was like. The rocks underfoot sharp enough to cut through leather, the fog so thick that by noon you couldn't see more than a few meters ahead, the complete silence except for wind and the occasional distant seal. No landmarks, no roads, no direction that wasn't desert. Some survivors walked for days before finding anything. Some didn't walk far enough. The ones who did documented a coast of whale bones and seal carcasses and bleached ship ribs so numerous, so old, they had become landmarks rather than disasters. You navigated by the wrecks. One wreck led you to the next. The Skeleton Coast is not a place where things go to die. It's a place where things that died became the map. Lake Titicaca sits at 3,812 meters in the Andes between Peru and Bolivia. At this altitude, the lake makes its own weather: morning mist, afternoon squalls, nights cold enough to qualify as winter at sea level. The light is different. The thin air filters less ultraviolet, and the blue of the lake at midday is more intense than almost any other body of water on Earth. The Uros people have been living on the lake itself for centuries. Not beside it, on it. The floating islands are built from totora reeds cut from the shallow lake margins, layered horizontally in alternating directions like brickwork anchored to the lake bed by rope and stakes, 1 to 2 meters thick. The bottom layer rots continuously from water contact. New layers go on top every few weeks. When you step onto one, the surface gives slightly underfoot a sponginess, unlike any floor anywhere else, like the island is breathing. The islands aren't fixed. Untie the anchor ropes and pole them to a new position. Historically, the Uros moved toward the center of the lake when threats appeared on shore. The island was the wall. The open water was the moat. Boats are totora. Houses are totora. The inner core of the reed is edible, starchy, slightly sweet. Today, some islands have solar panels mounted on frames above the reed rooftops, motorboats alongside reed vessels. The community has adapted in ways the original builders couldn't have imagined, and in ways that would probably make sense to them anyway, because the logic was always the same: use what works, add what's better, keep rebuilding. But every morning, someone still carries an armful of fresh reeds to the surface and adds them to the island, because the island keeps needing to be made. Here is what tonight was. A house in a tree holding a family 60 feet off the ground. A tidal wave that runs on a 2,000-year schedule. A bridge made from living roots that grows stronger every year it rains. A meadow beneath the deadliest mountain face on Earth. A road built at the cost of 1 life per kilometer, now partially underwater. A post office operating at the edge of breathable air. A village where -52 is considered manageable. People who drink blood because the biochemistry works. A forest returning to a city we abandoned. A desert with dunes that sing when the wind hits them the right way. And islands that never stop needing to be rebuilt. What connects all of it is not danger. It's a single question that every person in every one of these places has answered in their own way. How do I build a life here? The Korowai went up. The Kasi trained trees for generations, turning rain and roots into bridges strong enough to walk across. The Nenets survive on a moving migration because the tundra leaves no room for waste and very little room for mistakes. The Uros chose the lake over the land and kept building layer by layer every morning. And at the South Pole, 40 people spend months in darkness each winter because someone still has to keep the station running. None of them think of themselves as enduring something extraordinary. For the monks at Key Monastery, the altitude is just the altitude. For the postmaster at Hikim, it's just another day of mail. For the herder in Oymyakon, -52 is not a headline. It's weather. The extraordinary only looks extraordinary from outside. Somewhere on this planet right now, someone is adding another layer to an island slowly dissolving beneath them. Somewhere else, a light has just gone dark inside a treehouse high above the jungle floor. And somewhere along the Chintang River, people are already gathering for a wave that will arrive almost exactly when it always has. They're not afraid. It's Tuesday. The ground in front of you is boiling. Not a metaphor, not an effect. Superheated mud is pushing up through cracks directly beneath your feet. Massive bubbles, swelling, splitting open, swelling again. Steam tears through rock. The sulfur is so thick, you stop breathing the way you normally breathe. And you're standing on it. This planet, the one we think we know, has never really finished building itself. It's still working, still erupting, still freezing solid, still boiling through its own skin, and producing things that no language prepared you to name. There are places on Earth where you don't feel like you're standing on something that's already done. You feel like you're standing inside the lab of something that's still running experiments. Ground the color of rust and burning orange, lakes in shades of electric blue that don't belong in nature, a desert holding hundreds of lakes that no one can explain, and a crater wider than half a football pitch that has been on fire for 50 years straight, and nobody has managed to put it out. These aren't just the planet's most extreme places. These are the places where the Earth reminds you it's still under construction. The smell reaches you first. Sulfur, heavy and continuous. Not drifting through like smoke, it lives here. It is the air here. Some people stop at the entrance and don't go further. Not from fear, just reflex. the body making a decision before the brain catches up. Then you look down, and you realize the ground is moving. Værøy is a geothermal field in northern Iceland. Flat, grey, edged with orange and yellow ochre, where minerals have bled up through the surface for centuries. Steam punches out of fissures in slow, steady pulses, not a single breath, but a continuous one crack after another, all of them going at once. The mud pools are bubbling, not small bubbles. Each one can be as wide as a table. They swell up slowly, split open with a low, wet thud, and then another one forms in their place. No pause, no stopping. Iceland has an unwritten rule. Nothing here is ever just one thing. Vatnajökull is the largest glacier in Europe. Over 8,000 square kilometers of ice. Enough to bury Belgium, enough to cover an entire small country under a sheet of white. From a distance, it looks like a blank page stretched to the horizon. Underneath it are volcanoes, not one. Several, all active, all simultaneously, all sitting directly beneath moving ice. When one of them wakes up, the heat melts billions of liters of glacial ice within hours. The water has nowhere to go. Pressure builds, then releases all at once a glacial flood. Billions of tons of water pouring across the coastal plain so fast, the entire landscape changes shape in under a day. The 1996 eruption sent a wall of water that destroyed 3 bridges and pushed 200-ton chunks of ice half a kilometer inland. The whole event lasted 36 hours. Geologists watched from a safe distance and took notes. There was nothing else to do. Entirely. Every winter, as the ice contracts and shifts, it forms natural tunnels. Caves that glow blue, not sky blue, not turquoise, electric blue. Saturated, like someone left a light on inside and forgot it was there. When you step in, the outside world disappears. Sound drops away. People go quiet without anyone asking them to. These caves don't survive summer. They melt. Every winter, the glacier produces entirely new ones. You book a tour, and you're booking something that didn't exist 6 months ago. The guides here From altitude, Danakil looks like a wound on the surface of the planet. Yellow, orange, an unsettling chemical green. Dark patches where sulfur has crystallized around the vents. The colors here aren't the colors of Earth. They're the colors of reactions in progress. The Danakil Depression sits more than 120 meters below sea level. Average temperature year-round, above 34 degrees Celsius. No shade, no cool breeze, just heat and sun and ground that is simmering from below. Superheated water pushes through the Earth's crust, pulls sulfur and minerals up. With it pools on the surface in shades of yellow-green that stop you mid-step. Touch one's skin, burns immediately. The more vivid the color, the higher the acidity. And in those pools, there is life. Microorganisms, They've adapted to temperatures and chemical concentrations that would destroy everything else. Scientists study them not only out of curiosity, but because if life can survive here, it might survive in places we haven't considered yet. The frozen moons of Jupiter, the buried oceans of Mars. Under that heat, a man cuts a block of salt from the ground with a wooden tool, loads it onto a camel. The camel doesn't look up. This has been happening here for more than 1,000 years. Same route, same method. Tourists have gotten into trouble here, stepping onto ground that looked solid and wasn't. The crust near the vents can be paper thin. The salt workers know which sections to avoid. Visitors don't always.
Wow.
Thousands of miles from Danakil, in the middle of Turkmenistan's Karakum Desert, there is a hole. 50 meters wide, 20 meters deep. At night, the light from it is visible for miles. It started in the 1970s. Soviet engineers drilled into a gas pocket. The ground collapsed. They decided to burn off the gas, expecting it would take a few days. 50 years later, still burning. The government has commissioned studies. Surveys have been conducted. Nothing has changed. At some point, it stopped being an emergency. It became a thing that is simply there. Locals call it the door to hell. Not dramatically, just what they call it. Tourists drive out to camp beside it overnight. The sky goes deep black above. The fire burns orange-red below. No other sound for miles. No one knows how much longer it will burn. The honest answer is, no one is really asking anymore. Four times a day at a straight, barely 150 meters wide on the Norwegian coast, the ocean decides to pass through. All at once. 14 billion liters of seawater, that number doesn't have an easy comparison. Press through that gap at 40 kilometers per hour. Whirlpools tear open 10 meters across, 5 meters deep. They form, expand, spin, dissolve, then open again somewhere else. You hear it from shore before you see anything. Tourists show up, and most of them just stand at the railing. A lot of them take out their phones, realize the video won't capture the sound, and put them away. A fishing boat moves into the current and heads straight for the swirl. The captain tightens his grip on the wheel. Doesn't slow down. While visitors are still staring, the boat is already through, already turning back toward the dock. The fishermen here have a word for the current at peak force: Strömstyrka, stream strong. Children grow up learning which sections of water change, at which tides, which rocks to avoid, at which phase. It's not courage, it's just local knowledge that visitors don't have yet. Every year on dates announced in advance, the Qiantang River in China produces something that English doesn't have quite the right word for. A tidal bore, nearly 3 meters high, moving upstream at 40 kilometers per hour against the current. A vertical wall of brown water, dense and straight, traveling like a solid object rather than a liquid. The sound it makes is somewhere between a freight train and continuous thunder. The dates are public, barriers line the banks. Every year, someone still gets hit. They know. They come anyway. They step past the barrier just a little, just for a better shot. There's footage of it happening every year from multiple angles. The wave arrives, the barrier holds, the person doesn't move in time. Each video looks roughly the same. Each person appears surprised. The wave doesn't care how ready they thought they were. The lake in Kaidam Basin makes people stop mid-step. Deep turquoise, saturated, crystal clear to the bottom. White salt flats stretch to every horizon. The whole landscape looks like it was painted with colors too precise to be real. Warning signs in 3 languages. Don't swim, don't touch the water. The color comes from dissolved minerals. The same minerals that create that blue are what make it dangerous. Most people read the signs, then take another photo. Nearby, Karhan Salt Lake has a salt crust 50 to 60 feet thick. Engineers built a road across it, known as the Salt Bridge. No concrete. The salt is the foundation. 20 miles of active road sitting on mineral deposits. It has held for decades. The most visually surreal landscape in this region is also an active industrial site. Salt trucks, workers in hard hats, a processing facility next to a lake that doesn't look real. The workers here stop noticing the color after a while. You can tell which ones are new by whether they glance at the water during break. The ones who've been here longer don't. The trucks were there before the photographers. They'll be there after. The Badain Jaran Desert in Inner Mongolia is one of the driest places in China. The dunes here reach 500 meters, among the tallest in the world. The sand is orange-red. The air holds almost no moisture. And in the valleys between the dunes, more than 140 lakes. Some are saltwater, some are freshwater. They sit side by side, separated by nothing but sand. Adjacent, completely different chemistry. Nobody has fully explained why. The water shouldn't be here. The nearest significant rainfall is hundreds of kilometers away. The leading theory involves ancient underground aquifers seeping up from deep below. But the math doesn't fully add up. The desert keeps its source to itself. A monk opens the door of a small temple at sunrise. Behind him, dunes. In front of him, a lake perfectly still, reflecting the sky back at itself. He sweeps the threshold. Doesn't look at the water the way a visitor would. He just sweeps. Scattered through the desert are several small temples built on the shores of the larger lakes. People reach them on foot across the dunes. There are no roads into the interior. At night, the dunes make sound a low rumble caused by sand grains shifting against each other in the wind. Locals call it singing sand. The sound carries across the water. In the stillness between gusts, you can hear the desert breathing. People call this place Ghost City. But not because it was abandoned, because it was never built by anyone. In northwestern China, wind has been carving rock for millions of years and left behind columns 15 to 20 meters tall, standing in rows across the desert floor like ruins of a civilization that never existed. The surface of the rock is dark, almost black, lacquered by minerals that have seeped out and hardened over time into something that looks burned and glazed. Hundreds of columns, stretching for kilometers. Wind moving through the corridors between them makes sounds. A low groan, a high whistle, something between the two, a tone that doesn't map cleanly onto anything else. People who camp here overnight describe waking up to what sounds like distant voices. Not clearly, just enough to make you check whether someone is outside the tent. Researchers who've spent extended time here tend to describe the same progression. The second night is harder than the first. The first night you're still curious. The second night the sounds start to feel directed. Most people don't stay for a third. Almost no plants, almost no animals. The few who venture here, off-road drivers lone, photographers, surveyors watch the creeping darkness with an unspoken understanding. They start their engines. They leave before the last light fades. Nobody explains it as a rule. They just do it. A man steps outside at 6 in the morning to start his car. -60. The door handle burns through his glove. His breath freezes before it clears his face. He doesn't hurry. He's done this every morning for 30 years. Oymyakon, 500 people. The coldest permanently inhabited place on Earth. The village sits in a valley in Siberia, a shallow bowl in the land that traps cold air, the way a cup holds water. In winter, the sun rises late and sets early. Some days, only 4 hours of light. At -40, metal becomes brittle. At -50, frostbite in under 2 minutes. At -60, diesel thickens. Batteries die. The ground turns to iron. Cars don't get switched off here. If they do, they might not start again until spring. So they run. All night, all winter. The sound of idling engines in the dark is background noise as ordinary as birdsong anywhere else. School only closes below -52 Celsius. There are photographs of children playing outside at recess at -50, not because they have to, because it's recess. The cold is just what outside feels like. Nearby, a thermal spring, one small patch of ground that never freezes. 500 people built their entire lives around that one spring. In January, the village records temperatures. The lowest ever measured here, -71.2 degrees Celsius in 1924. It's on a sign at the entrance to the village. Tourists photograph it. Locals walk past without looking. They've seen it their whole lives. When the brief summer comes, the light lasts almost all night. People sit outside at midnight with cups of tea, going cold. Children run around in t-shirts. Someone fires up a grill. It looks like any village anywhere, except for the month on the calendar. From the inside, it doesn't feel like a trade-off. It just looks like home. Lake Titicaca, nearly 3,800 meters above sea level, and in the middle of it, islands that have no business floating. Not rock, not concrete, not anchored to anything solid. The Uros people built them by hand from Totora reed's thick grass that grows in the lake. Bundled roots, floating mats, layer pressed onto layer until it holds the weight of a house. Around 2,000 people live on them today. Houses of reeds, boats of reeds, the floor beneath your feet, reeds. The island is always slowly sinking from below while being rebuilt from above. If the work stops long enough, the floor starts to feel different underfoot. Softer, less certain. Leave it longer, and it goes under. It has happened. A floor softens over a few days. One corner tilts toward the water. The family rebuilds. The other islands notice but don't say much. Then the work resumes. So the work never stops. An old woman adds fresh reeds to the edge while a child watches. No ceremony, just the work. The Uros originally fled here to escape Inca expansion. Out on the water, they were mobile, unreachable, safe. They never went back to land. If you visit someone hands you a piece of raw reed to chew, it has a faint sweetness. Children grow up on islands that are literally made of food. There are solar panels now on some islands. A few families have small televisions. The reed floor is still the reed floor, just with an extension cord running across it. Around 87 inhabited floating islands on Lake Titicaca. The number shifts slightly every year. This planet doesn't tell you it's still working. It doesn't announce. It doesn't explain. It just continues boiling, freezing, carving ice caves, and then melting them away, burning holes that no one remembers, to extinguish, placing lakes in the middle of deserts for reasons that don't fully add up. And at every single one of those places, humans found a way to stay. Not because they didn't know the danger, not because they had no other option, but because people in some way that resists clean explanation have a tendency to look at the things the Earth is still doing and decide, all right, I want to be near this. Somewhere right now, a guide is sketching the shape of an ice cave he knows won't exist by summer. A woman is layering fresh reeds onto the edge of an island that is slowly sinking and slowly being built back up. A man in Oymyakon is standing in -60 darkness, listening to his engine run and going back inside. None of them are thinking about an unfinished planet. They're just living on it. The ground in front of you is boiling. Not a metaphor, not an effect. Superheated mud is pushing up through cracks directly beneath your feet. Massive bubbles, swelling, splitting open, swelling again. Steam tears through rock. The sulfur is so thick, you stop breathing the way you normally breathe. And you're standing on it. This planet, the one we think we know, has never really finished building itself. It's still working, still erupting, still freezing solid, still boiling through its own skin, and producing things that no language prepared you to name. There are places on Earth where you don't feel like you're standing on something that's already done. You feel like you're standing inside the lab of something that's still running experiments. Ground the color of rust and burning orange, lakes in shades of electric blue that don't belong in nature, a desert holding hundreds of lakes that no one can explain, and a crater wider than half a football pitch that has been on fire for 50 years straight, and nobody has managed to put it out. These aren't just the planet's most extreme places. These are the places where the Earth reminds you it's still under construction. In Ethiopia's Tigray region, there is a church that sits inside a cliff. Not beside the cliff, not at the base. Inside it, cut directly into the rock at 8,200 feet above sea level on a ledge that the mountain seems to have produced by accident. The approach looks like a wall of bare stone. No fixed ropes, no metal rungs drilled into the face, no harness station at the base. The final section is smooth, vertical rock, with no obvious handholds, just shallow ledges worn into the surface by generations of feet. One missed grip, one wet sole. The fall is several hundred feet to rock, no net, nothing below but air and then the ground. A priest adjusts his robes at the bottom, checks his sandals once, and starts up. Not hesitantly. The way someone leaves a house with the particular ease of a person going somewhere they've been 1,000 times. Several film crews have attempted to document the ascent over the years. More than one cameraman stopped partway up, not from fear exactly, but because the camera required one hand and the rock required two. They filmed from the base. The footage exists. The climb itself is harder to show than it sounds. Inside the walls hold religious paintings more than 1,500 years old. Reds and deep blues and gold painted directly onto the rock. Almost no moisture reaches this high. Almost no one does either. The paintings have barely faded. A visiting journalist once asked a local woman who made this climb every single week, well into her 70s, whether she ever felt afraid on the rock. She looked at him for a moment. Then she said, "Afraid of what?" A priest there once put it this way: the difficulty is part of the prayer. Arriving is not separate from worship. It is worship. The Korowai people of Papua, Indonesia, build their homes in the tree canopy. Not small elevated platforms. Real homes, sleeping areas, cooking fires, storage space balanced on branches 35 to 50 meters above the jungle floor. Higher than a 10-story building. Every piece of material goes up by rope, piece by piece, from the ground. Crocodiles can't reach that height. Floodwater can't either. Up there, you're simply beyond most of the things that can kill you below. Building one of these houses takes weeks. The hardest part isn't the height, it's the judgment that comes before a single branch is cut. Finding the right trees, strong enough, close enough together, positioned in a way that allows the weight to be shared properly across multiple anchor points. A wrong decision at the planning stage means the whole structure fails. The Korowai have been making this call correctly, generation after generation, without a written manual, without engineering software, without a blueprint. Occasionally, one fails. The family notices the branch shifting first, sometimes days before anything gives. They watch it go down from a neighboring platform. Then they start the next one. A man puts his foot on the first notch of the log ladder and climbs without slowing. No pause, no hesitation, no thought given to the drop on either side. He's just going home. In the middle of Yemen's Hadramaut Valley, there is a city of towers. Mud brick, 5 to 11 stories, some of them 500 years old, still standing, still inhabited, still maintained by hand every generation, mixing fresh mud with straw and pressing it into the outer walls before the rains come. The towers were built tall to survive flooding. Over centuries, they became something else entirely, a statement. The taller your building, the more powerful your family. Wealthy families added floors. Rivals responded in kind. An architectural arms race in mud 5 centuries before steel frame construction existed anywhere on Earth. A woman fills a bucket from the river, carries it to the 3rd floor, mixes it with straw, and presses it into the wall with her hands. She has done this every few years since she was a girl. Her mother did it. Her grandmother did it. She doesn't think of it as preservation. She thinks of it as maintenance. The tower needs mud before the rains. So she applies mud before the rains. That is the whole story. The towers share walls. They lean against each other slightly, by design, not by accident. When a family can no longer maintain their building, the community steps in, not from charity, because a collapsing tower takes the ones beside it down with it. It has happened. A family delays too long. A wall softens, and suddenly, it is not one family's problem anymore. The community repairs it. The original family sometimes doesn't return. The tower stays. People call Shibam the Manhattan of the desert. That comparison undersells it considerably. Manhattan is 150 years old. Shibam's towers were already ancient when Shakespeare was born. No elevators, no plumbing above the ground floor, no structural steel, just mud, straw, and 500 years of people deciding this was worth maintaining. The Qinghai-Tibet Railway connects mainland China to Lhasa. Over 1,000 kilometers of track, more than 600 miles of it above 4,000 meters. The highest point on the line sits at 5,072 meters above sea level, 16,600 feet. The first problem was the ground itself. Permafrost. Heat from passing trains melts it. Melted permafrost softens. Softened ground shifts. A standard railway would have destroyed itself within a few years of operation. Engineers drilled thousands of pipes into the earth along the full length of the route. The pipes circulate coolant year-round, keeping the permafrost artificially frozen indefinitely even as trains pass overhead at speed. The railway is in one sense a refrigeration system that also happens to carry passengers. That solved the ground. Then there were the animals. 675 bridges were built along the line, each one designed with specific clearance underneath. Not for drainage, not for flood events, for Tibetan antelope. The herds migrate twice a year across the plateau. Engineers built the clearance so a full herd could pass beneath the tracks without breaking stride. Someone wrote antelope clearance into a structural specification at 16,000 feet. nobody removed it. The train passes, the antelope walk beneath it, both continue. At this altitude, oxygen levels run at roughly 60% of what exists at sea level. Passenger cars are pressurized. The workers who built this line acclimatized for weeks before being permitted to start. Some never adjusted. They were sent back down. Off the southeastern coast of England, steel towers rise from the North Sea. Each structure, a cluster of gun platforms mounted on legs, driven into the seabed, connected by walkways standing 15 to 30 meters above the surface, industrial and angular, surrounded by open grey water with no land in sight. They were built during World War II to defend England from enemy aircraft coming in low over the water, armed, manned, effective. After the war, abandoned. In the 1960s, pirate radio stations moved in. Just outside British territorial waters, legally beyond the reach of UK broadcasting law. They played what the BBC wouldn't. Rock and roll, soul, jazz. The signal came from the sea. The government couldn't stop it. One platform went further. In 1967, a former British Army major sailed out to an abandoned fort, climbed up the rusted ladder, and declared it a sovereign nation. He wrote a constitution, designed a flag, composed a national anthem, issued passports, gave himself the title of Prince. British courts examined the situation and concluded the structure sat outside UK territorial jurisdiction. No country in the world recognizes Sealand. Its population is usually zero. You can purchase a Lord or Lady title for $30, printed certificate, not legally recognized anywhere. There is a waiting list. Search almost any location on Earth, satellite images, street-level photography, drone footage, travel reviews. Search for Mustang before 2008, almost nothing. Not poor internet, not missing data. Outsiders simply weren't allowed in. Special permit required. Strictly limited numbers. Fees on top of fees. For decades before that, completely closed. Not because of war, not because of disaster, just off-limits. Mustang is a high plateau in northern Nepal, pressed against the Tibetan border, surrounded by mountains that block weather systems from 3 directions, wind-scoured cliffs in deep rust red and brown. A landscape so stripped of moisture and color that it looks like another planet's surface. Carved into the vertical rock, faces cave cities. Hundreds of rooms cut by hand into cliffs that rise straight from the valley floor. Accessible only by ladder, over 1,000 years old, empty. Nobody knows who built them. Nobody knows why they were abandoned. The ladders that remain are the only evidence that someone at some point decided to stop coming back. Archaeologists have found storage jars still sealed, tools arranged as if a person had stepped out for a moment and never returned. No signs of violence, no signs of disease, just gone. The working theory is migration, but no one knows where they went, and no one knows why they left the jars. 14th century wall paintings remain on the walls of the chambers, pigment still vivid after 6 centuries in the dry altitude. In one chamber, there is a painting of a figure looking directly outward, not at anything depicted in the scene, just straight ahead, out toward whoever stands in the room. It has been looking that way for 600 years. Researchers have no explanation for why it was painted that way. Mustang was a kingdom for 500 years. It quietly ceased being a kingdom in 2008. The last king gave an interview about it afterward. He seemed, by most accounts, largely fine. A tourist photographs a wall painting. A monk in the same chamber adjusts his robes. He has a schedule. He doesn't stop to look. The tourist will go home and describe the cave cities and the sealed jars and the figure on the wall to anyone who will listen. The monk will ring the bells at the same time he rings them every day. Neither of them is wrong about what this place is. First, the bridge. The Cristallo Bridge, single-file, cable-supported, suspended several hundred feet above open rock. It moves when you walk on it. Your hands find the cable railing before your brain decides to put them there. The wind comes from directions you didn't expect. On the other side, a small orange metal hut, roughly the size of a large van, bolted directly into the cliff face. 12 people maximum. One night. No heat beyond body warmth. No running water. A row of bunks. A single window looking out over the Alps. It was built for mountaineers caught in storms, for the moments when descending becomes more dangerous than staying put and waiting. The hut sways in wind, by design. A rigid structure bolted to a cliff face in the Alps would be torn off. The flexibility is what keeps it attached. People who've been caught here during a serious storm describe the same thing. The hut moves. Not dangerously, it was built to move. But you feel it, and you feel it in your chest more than in your feet, and you lie there listening to it. And you understand very clearly that the mountain is not remotely interested in your comfort. People book it months in advance now. 12 spots. You bring your own food, your own sleeping bag. You cross the bridge. You spend the night. Most people bring more food than they need. Nobody sleeps well. In the morning, they drink instant coffee from a small stove and watch the light change across the Alps. Back to the mountains, but this time the story isn't about survival. It's administrative. Spiti Valley, between 3,600 and 4,500 meters above sea level, surrounded on most sides by mountains that weather-block visitors and apparently block any reasonable discussion about where to locate a post office. In Hikim village, at 4,440 meters above sea level, there is one, a counter, ink stamps, a postal worker who has held this position for years. His daily commute involves altitude acclimatization. A tourist writes a postcard and slides it through the window. That card eventually drops into a mailbox somewhere flat and warm. The envelope says, Hikim, India, 440 meters. The recipient usually has no idea what that number means. Sometimes people ask the postal worker what it's like holding this position at the highest post office in the world. He says, it's a post office. You stamp letters. During national elections, officials trek for days to set up a polling station for fewer than 50 eligible voters. Folding table, ballot box, every election, never in question. Across the valley, Danka Monastery, 1,000 years old, sitting on a narrow, crumbling cliff with no structural reason that anyone can identify for why it is still standing. The monks ring the same bells at the same times. The postal worker stamps letters at the same altitude. The Indian government requires a post office in every village above a certain population threshold. Hikim qualifies. Bureaucracy does not negotiate with altitude. Lake Tilicho, nearly 5,000 meters above sea level, one of the highest lakes in the world. Deep blue water, white glaciers above, no trees, almost no sound. Getting there takes days. Landslide country, paths that drop away vertically on one side. At this altitude, the lungs start complaining before the eyes understand what they're looking at. Halfway up, people stop talking. Conversation becomes a physical effort. Words cost oxygen here. Some trekkers carry a small treat they've been saving for the whole journey, a chocolate bar, an energy pack. They sit at the edge of the lake, unwrap it, slowly eat it while looking at the water. 4 days of walking for this exact moment. When you arrive, it is completely still. A trekker sits at the edge, doesn't reach for his phone, just sits. After 20 minutes, he stands and starts back down. He doesn't say anything for the rest of that day. "16 kilometers, unpaved, one vehicle wide. A vertical drop on the left side, sometimes hundreds of feet, with no barrier, no guardrail, nothing between the tire and open air. In 2019, a Jeep went over the edge. 7 people. The road stayed open. The same service still runs. The drivers here don't hold standard licenses for this route. The Jeeps have been passed down between drivers' vehicles with brake systems modified by hand rebuilt and rebuilt again across years of use. Each driver has memorized every rock, every soft shoulder, every section that changes after rain. That knowledge doesn't get written down anywhere. It's handed over in person, one driver to the next. Some drivers stop before the worst section. They step out, light a cigarette, look at the road, get back in. Same bend, same drop, 40-50 times a year. At the top, a green meadow, wildflowers, quiet, and directly above, Nanga Parbat, the 9th highest peak on Earth, one of the most deadly climbing routes in the history of mountaineering. From the meadow, it just looks enormous, calm, like it isn't doing anything. Nearby, the Husseini Bridge, old wooden planks, some of them missing rope railings, sagging toward the middle, the whole structure moving in the wind above glacial water 50 feet below. There is a newer concrete bridge, solid, stable, guardrails. Some people still use the old one. Nobody explains why. Would you cross it? Before the outro, stay here for a moment. In spring, apricot trees bloom across the terraced farms that climb the valley walls. The whole place turns pink and white. An old man drinks tea on a flat rooftop, watching the mountains the way he does every morning. His tea goes cold. He makes another cup. The ladyfinger peak, a narrow column of rock that rises almost vertically from the valley floor into the sky, looks like it was placed deliberately. It doesn't look natural, but it is. Every summer, more apricots come in than can be stored. They're laid out to dry on every available flat surface, rooftops, road edges, cloth spread on the ground. The smell carries for miles in the thin air. Locals press dried apricots into the hands and pockets of visitors without asking, a handful into a jacket, a small bag pressed into a backpack. A woman pushes a fistful into a traveler's pocket without a word. He finds them 3 days later in a guest house somewhere else entirely. Still good. This planet doesn't tell you it's still working. It doesn't announce. It doesn't explain. It just continues boiling, freezing, carving ice caves, and then melting them away, burning holes that no one remembers, to extinguish, placing lakes in the middle of deserts for reasons that don't fully add up. And at every single one of those places, humans found a way to stay. Not because they didn't know the danger, not because they had no other option, but because people in some way that resists clean explanation have a tendency to look at the things the Earth is still doing and decide, all right, I want to be near this. Somewhere right now, a guide is sketching the shape of an ice cave he knows won't exist by summer. A woman is layering fresh reeds onto the edge of an island that is slowly sinking and slowly being built back up. A man in Oymyakon is standing in -60 darkness, listening to his engine run and going back inside. None of them are thinking about an unfinished planet. They're just living on it.